KUAM News Hotspot is brought to you by
Pacific Points, Do More, Get More, and Calvo Enterprises, Inc.
The menu, brought to you by King's Restaurant, always open, always local, and Ruby Tuesday Guam, home of the Fresh Garden Bar.
Good day, everyone, and welcome to The Hub. I'm Nestor Lecanto. This week, our topic is the very contentious issue of abortion and Senator Talina Nelson's current version, which is the Guam Heartbeat Act. The highly emotional and very divisive issue of abortion was rekindled with the Guam Heartbeat Act, sponsored by Senator Talina Nelson. It was patterned after the Texas Heartbeat Act, which has been in effect since September of 2021 and so far has withstood multiple legal challenges from pro-choice advocates. That law bans abortions once a fetal heartbeat is detected, typically within 6 weeks of a pregnancy. Just this week, Senator Nelson successfully moved to place her bill on the session agenda. It drew strong protests from the pro-choice side, who object to a lame duck legislature potentially deciding to entertain such a controversial issue in the final gathering of their term. But pro-life advocates, including the local Catholic Church, strongly encouraged it. In a recent statement, Archdiocese of Agana Vicar General Father Romeo Convocar sent a letter to the legislature on behalf of Archbishop Michael Burns, which reads in part, "As citizens, the Church and its people have a right and responsibility to contribute to the common good of our society. We help the common good of our communities by practicing our right to free speech and helping to shape public policy through dialogue and active community involvement." And we're joined now by attorney Anita Arriola, who is one of the spokespersons for the Guam People for Choice organization, and of course, a long-time pro-choice advocate. Anita, thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Nestor. Thanks for having me.
First of all, let me get you to explain your opposition to the Heartbeat Act, which the legislature will be deliberating. And I need to let the audience know that we're taping this before the senators are actually have been able to deliberate during session. But your organization is opposed to it being even added to the agenda. Can you explain why, and then what your general opposition is to the bill?
Sure. I mean, the Guam Heartbeat Act has several provisions that we think are really objectionable. The first is that it bans all abortions post 6 weeks of gestation. And the theory behind that provision is that, a heartbeat or an embryo that has a heartbeat is usually at 6 weeks gestation, and that an embryo that has a heartbeat should be afforded all rights and protections over and above those of a woman who is having a baby. And the reason that we have an opposition to this provision of the bill is because it's basically an abortion ban. Medical experts and reproductive health experts disagree on whether or not an embryo that has a heartbeat actually is life. There's cardiac activity that can be detected as early as that, but many people disagree that that's really a heartbeat and that it's really just the sound, and it doesn't define humanity, and it doesn't define a person. And so our concern is that elevating an embryo with a heartbeat or so-called heartbeat and giving that embryo all the rights and protections over and above that of a pregnant woman is not constitutional and is not what's in the best interest for the people of Guam. The second reason why we oppose this bill is because the bill sets up a vigilante system. It provides that any person, related or not, friend or not, neighbor or not, whoever, any person can sue another person, not just for providing or inducing an abortion, but also for aiding and abetting the procurement of an abortion. So say, for example, I'm an attorney I advise my clients or my nieces or, friends or family that they can go seek an abortion in Hawaii or here in Guam, wherever. Any person, you, Nestor, anyone can sue me for aiding and abetting in having an abortion within that 6-week gestational period, right? That means that parents of a girl who has been raped, if they decide to procure an abortion for their daughter, their neighbors, their relatives, anyone can sue them. And get this, not only can they sue them, but they have a 6-year statute of limitations to file that lawsuit. And they get a $10,000 bounty in damages to be able to file that lawsuit and prevail. I have yet to hear any justification from any of the sponsors of this bill about why we need to have that provision in the bill. It's divisive. It's the only reason that there's a provision in that bill like this is to create a climate of fear and retribution and divisiveness in our community that we do not need. We are not like other jurisdictions in the US mainland where people go after abortion providers. They kill them, they harass them, they stalk them. We don't do that here in Guam. And so to provide for a vigilante system where people are suing each other, people unrelated to an abortion, people unrelated to the persons involved in deciding whether to have an abortion, I have yet to hear a justification from the sponsors of this bill. And frankly, Nestor, I would really appreciate it if you would get them on your program and ask them that question, because I don't see a justification for it. And then finally, we're against this bill because studies have shown, and Nestor, you alluded to the fact that I've been a long-time pro-choice advocate. I filed the lawsuit against Public Law 20-134 back in 1990. Studies back in 1990 and all the way leading up to today established that when you have really restrictive abortion laws and policies, they don't reduce the increase of abortions or the demand for abortions. Instead, they increase self-managed and self-abortions. And that's not what we want here in Guam. We do not want women or girls to be dying of self-managed abortions or performing or inducing their own abortions. And studies have also shown that when you have access to safe and legal abortions, you're not increasing the demand for safe abortions. You're just increasing, the prevalence of self-abortions and self-managed abortions, which are dangerous. So that's why we're against this bill. And, I do want to say that I'm extremely disappointed in the sponsors of this bill and the fact that they're trying to pass this at the last minute in a lame duck legislature. What happened to their pro-life beliefs before the election? Why are they doing this now?
Let me ask you about that, and let me just read you real quickly a statement that Vicar General Father Romeo Convocar issued on behalf of Archbishop Michael Burns about this, the lame duck deliberation on this bill. From the Church's view and that of our citizen Catholics, you diminish the importance and duty of each of your colleagues in the outgoing 36th Guam legislature when you attempt to nullify their votes and fail to recognize that they are duly elected sworn officials until the very final moment of their terms in office. Please think of all the hours spent by the people who testified live or who provided written testimony, and the senators who were present to listen or read the input. And their point is that this is something that has been discussed publicly multiple times in public hearings. And so these senators have the duty to at least deal with it. And this being, as you say, the final session, they still have that duty. How do you respond to that?
These senators, the sponsors of this bill, have a duty to listen to the people of Guam. And when 4-1 testimonies are against the bill, and the vast minority of people are in favor of this bill, they have a duty to listen to the will of the people of Guam. I think what's really interesting, Nestor, is that the committee report on this bill, it's like over 2,000 pages, but everyone should read it because the sponsors of the bill said, we don't want to divide this committee further, and we don't want to, disempower any women or girls in this community. You know what the committee report says? It says very clearly, although that's not their intent, that is what is going to happen here in Guam. This issue is highly divisive, and I'm saying that in quotes. It's highly divisive. That's in the committee report. They also say in the committee report that this bill disempowers women and girls, all people who want to have bodily autonomy. And in particular, it disempowers women and girls of underprivileged communities. So in a sense, I agree with the Vicar General, and that my agreement is, yeah, listen to the will of the people. And the will of the people is that you should not be introducing this bill and voting on it. And you should not pass it, more importantly.
All right, we're going to take a quick break, and we'll be back with more of our discussion on this law right after this. All right, and we are back, and we are continuing our discussion with Attorney Anita Arriola, representative for Guam People for Choice. Anita, you know, this Heartbeat Act was patterned after the Texas Heartbeat Act, which has been in effect for more than a year now, and has withstood multiple legal challenges. What is your reaction to that?
So, you know, they say in the legal community, it's never over till it's over, because court challenges are just that, court challenges, and you have to go through a whole process and series of appeals before you can finally get to holding that says that this bill or this law is actually constitutional or unconstitutional. I can say that initially the Texas Heartbeat Act was challenged in the U.S. Supreme Court, and they rejected it because they said you need to go through the procedure. You need to file in state court, or you need to file in federal court, and you need to make your way up through the appeals so that they can address all of the procedural and merit arguments that are challenging this particular statute. So I don't think that it's over yet. I think that the challenges are still in court. And, you know, I know some people are going around saying, you know, if they've not been found, you know, unconstitutional, well, yeah, because they're still in court and they're still going through the appeals process. So, you know, to say that they've withstood challenges is, you know, a bit misleading. They are still going through legal challenges. And, you know, I'm glad you brought that up, Nestor, because does Guam really want to go through, you know, another time where we're going to have lawsuits pitting people against each other, and where we're going to have to sue people and sue, you know, various agencies and other people to ban this law if it becomes law. I just don't see that Guam really wants to do that. We did that in 1990, and it was terribly divisive for everyone. You know, for these senators to come forward and say, oh, you know, we don't want to divide the community, and yet they want to pass this bill into law, that's exactly what they're going to do.
Okay, and once again, we're doing this interview before the senators have that chance to deliberate on the bill. But even if they do pass the bill, it's been made pretty clear by the governor that she would veto it. She's made that public statements to that effect. So isn't it moot anyways that they're going to go through the motions?
Well, you know, they can always try to override the governor's veto. I certainly hope that they won't. They need 8 votes to pass, and then the governor may likely veto it, and then they need 10 votes to override the veto. You know, they may have enough votes. I don't know. I certainly hope they don't. You know, I mean, I can just say that my really big disappointment with the sponsors of this bill is that they waited until the last minute to try to pass this bill. Why didn't they do it before the election? They had months to do this, and to me, it just reeks of politicking, you know, electioneering, trying to get things passed in a rush rather than trying to get things done in a deliberate and deliberative way. And to me, the senators who are no longer going to be in office next year, they are no longer going to be held accountable. You know, they can't be you know, rejected in a future election. They can no longer be not reelected. So, you know, to me, it's really irresponsible, and to me, it lacks accountability. You know, I just wonder where these people were before the election. If anybody's sitting out there and thinking, you know, they're only doing this now in the last minute during the holidays when people are off island, when they think that they can pass it, you know, without any scrutiny. Guess what? You know, we're watching you. And it's not just Guam People for Choice or Famala and Rights. It's a lot of people who are watching you.
Yeah. Anita, you mentioned the Supreme Court earlier, and that might be a good transition to, I wanted to discuss that bigger question, the Supreme Court ruling earlier this year, which basically overturned or reversed Roe v. Wade after 5 decades or so. What is your reaction to that? And then I wanted to get your reaction to, your mother's, your late mother's bill, which provided for an abortion law for Guam. But first, your reaction to the Supreme Court's reversal of Roe v. Wade and the implications of that for Guam.
Well, I mean, the Supreme Court was pretty clear. They did reverse Roe versus Wade, but they also left it open for all of the states and territories to decide for themselves how they want to handle this issue. What I'm seeing right now from all of the states and territories is that everyone will be enacting their own laws. You might have seen in the last election that some of the states have actually passed constitutional provisions allowing for the right to an abortion, allowing for a constitutional right of privacy. At least 2 states that I can think of tried to ban all abortions in their constitutions, and they were unsuccessful. So I think what we're going to see is we're going to have a lot of states and jurisdictions passing different laws, passing different constitutional provisions. And in my view, I think all of them are going to be challenged. And so I think that, the Supreme Court hasn't heard the last of this. And if they thought that, we'll just say we'll leave it to the states and the territories, let them handle it. Well, guess what? They're still going to come up to the Supreme Court and they're still going to ask for guidance, or they're going to ask for interpretations. And the Supreme Court is ultimately going to have to make that decision about which statutes or constitutional provisions will pass muster. So, yeah. I don't see this as an end. I don't see this as, the end of Roe versus Wade. I just see it as the beginning of more litigation.
Yeah, and as I mentioned, your late mother, who we all hold in very high regard, she authored in 1990 the law that provided for a ban on abortion. That was blocked by a court injunction, which has prevented its implementation since then. But the SCOTUS decision apparently would change that. What's your response to that?
Yeah, I don't believe it does, because I was an attorney in the lawsuit. There was a permanent injunction against the law being enforced. The last order in the case is that there's not just a permanent injunction, but the court found that the law was void and unconstitutional. There have been cases where there have been other abortion bans in other jurisdictions, and they have tried to reinstitute or resurrect those abortion bans, and some have not been successful, some have been successful. Again, we're going to have a lot of legal challenges to these types of actions, and I anticipate that that's going to happen as well. If, I know that Attorney General-elect Doug Moylan has indicated that he will try to resurrect that abortion ban, and we'll see, what he does with that and whether or not he's successful. Because, I think there are going to be challenges to it, and there is going to be a lot of outcry about his taking that lawsuit up by himself, particularly when his other clients, the governor of Guam and other agencies of the government of Guam, may not agree with his action.
All right, I want to talk a little bit more, a lot more about what Attorney General-elect Doug Moylan's intentions are, but we got to take another break, and we'll be right back with Attorney Anita Arriola right after this. All right, everyone, we are back. We're talking with Attorney Anita Arriola with Guam People for Choice. Before the break, Anita, you talked about Attorney General Attorney General-elect Doug Moylan's position on the abortion ban, the law that was passed back in 1990. Can you elaborate on that, what you believe his position to be, and just how you would react to that?
Well, I've heard a lot of rumors about what are his real intentions in resurrecting this abortion ban. One of the chief rumors that I have heard is that some of the pro-life people want to get the senators and the legislature to pass Bill 291. Otherwise, they're threatening for Doug Moylan to resurrect the abortion ban, and that's going to be a worse law for Guam. Call me a cynic, but I don't believe that people are above and beyond that kind of reproach or that kind of strategy. If that's the case, shame on him, shame on them. If this is something that Mr. Moylan wants to do, I would say that Mr. Moylan was elected on the slimmest of margins. And I don't believe that he has a mandate to speak for the people of Guam on the abortion issue. But if he decides to do that, I think that he has a major conflict of interest. The Attorney General of Guam is the chief legal officer of the government of Guam. And the government of Guam is not just an amorphous entity. The government of Guam is the governor of Guam and agencies of the government of Guam. And in that 1990 lawsuit challenging Public Law 2134, I sued not just the governor of Guam or the Attorney General, but also Department of Public Health and Social Services and the Guam Election Commission. I have not heard that Mr. Moylan has consulted any of those clients as to whether or not they want to move forward with this lawsuit. And if he intends to do this, on his own, then I think he needs to be clear with the people of Guam and with his clients about why he's doing this. It begs the question, are you doing this for your clients or are you doing this for your own personal reasons? And I don't think that an elected attorney general can do anything for their own personal reasons.
Yeah, and he said publicly, including interviews with us, that he basically said that it's not up to the AG to challenge duly passed law, and that he will move to dissolve the injunction because he considers that a duly passed law.
Except that it was found void and unconstitutional. I mean, big missing part there. It was found void and unconstitutional. So I don't see how he intends to proceed. But if he does, good luck. We'll be there challenging it and challenging his actions.
Yeah. Now, your Senator Arriola's law, your mom's law, called for a referendum, which would, I guess, essentially have the people of Guam decide what it wants to do in terms of abortion. Is that going to happen, you think? And should that be the ultimate resolution to this long-running, very contentious controversy?
No, I don't think it's going to happen because the public law was very clear that there was a definite date in the law that said the referendum has to be held within a certain period of time. That date has long passed, 22 years ago, and so I don't think that referendum is going to happen. And also the law says that there's a severability clause, which states that if there's any provision of the law that is no longer valid or constitutional or can no longer be enforced, then it's severed from the main law and the rest of it can be enforced or not. So I don't think that a referendum is going to happen.
All right. We wanted to get someone from the pro-life side on, but unfortunately we were not able to. But I wanted you to just get your thoughts on, they do have very deeply held beliefs. And how would you respond to pro-life advocates who believe that a fetal heartbeat represents life and should be protected? And actually, there are many that believe that even falls short, that life begins at conception, and that the right of a mother ends when the right to life of a baby begins. How would you respond? Because there are a lot of people on Guam with these deeply held beliefs.
Of course there are. There are as many religious beliefs as there are religions. There are as many gradations of belief as there are religions, and there are as many religious beliefs and beliefs about when life begins as there are people on our planet. That doesn't mean that they are right or they are wrong, that I am right, that I am wrong. It is just their beliefs. But what I would ask these people to think about is what is really killing babies in Guam, because that seems to be the justification. We're killing people, we're killing babies with, abortions. And what I would like to ask people to really look into and really think about is what is really killing babies on Guam? It's not abortions, because they've chased out all the abortion providers in Guam, right? It's the lack of prenatal care. It's substance abuse during pregnancies, which causes severely preterm labor. It's babies dying of malnutrition and neglect because they're born to families who don't have the resources to care for them when they are born. And so I really wish that the people of Guam and the senators in the Guam legislature would look into those issues and provide answers for those issues, because that's what's killing babies in Guam, not abortions.
And finally, just on a personal note, because I've known you a long time, Anita, and of course, as I mentioned, I held your mom in such a high regard. Did you ever have a conversation with her about this issue, and would you want to share that?
Well, of course, I had a conversation. I had many conversations with my mother about this. And, this is what happens when you have a wonderful mother and father who raise 8 children to be their own people, to have their own beliefs, to exercise their own free will and their independence. Of course, my mother, was disappointed that I didn't have the same beliefs as her, but she understood them because she and my father raised us to be strong-willed and independent people. So, while we may have disagreed in that, there was no question that we loved each other and respected each other tremendously.
All right. Thank you so much. Appreciate your time. Attorney Anita Arriola, spokesperson for Guam People for Choice. Thanks for joining us.
You're welcome. Thank you, Nestor, for having me.
All right. I'm Nestor Liconda. Thanks for watching, everybody. We'll see you again next week on The Hub.